Keep it high, keep it tight. I'm Jay Morse, review guy, back to bring you another video. This is going to be a longer video, so if you're not interested in that, feel free to click off now, but drop a like if you don't mind. Today we're going to be talking about my top 30 favorite rock and metal bands. Now, I could have made this a top 50 list, a top 100 list, and still wouldn't have been able to fit all the bands that I listen to, admire, respect, or like on that list. And I narrowed it down to just rock and metal. I can do separate lists. I probably will do separate lists of different genres of music that I like, or softer music, or pop music, rap music, whatever, because I have a very wide repertoire of music that I listen to. So, if your favorite band is not on this list, I apologize. I'm going to try to keep this moving at a reasonable pace, and hopefully we can get through each band pretty quickly. Let's get right into it. So, number 30. I have a list in front of me also, which is neat. So, number 30 is going to be Antester. So, Antester is an unblack metal band, and the reason they're on this list is I really admire bands that can really change how a certain genre is perceived, and Tester definitely does that. Their newest album, which isn't really new, just their newest album, Omen, is a very, very good album. I highly suggest you check it out. And if you aren't necessarily too keen on the, like maybe the idealism that black metal clings to normally, then definitely check out Unblack Metal because it's a lot more on the other side of the spectrum. Number 29 is Mournful Congregation. This is a funeral doom metal band, or just a doom metal band that really has a lot of, just invokes a lot of emotion and sorrow, and it's definitely the type of music that you have to be in a certain mood for. And this isn't a band, this isn't a genre. We're going to be talking about another band from the genre later. Spoiler alert. It's not for everyone, so definitely think about that going into it. But if you're feeling like you want to explore some different genres and maybe get the feel for stuff, definitely check it out. It's very, very emotional, and it's almost avant-garde in its approach in terms of how it sounds. It's very interesting. So number 28 is the only thing on this list where I've grouped together multiple bands. So number 28 is Yes, Rush, and King Crimson. So these are the kind of bands that helped catapult the whole progressive movement. And while they're maybe not the bands that I listen to the most, I have listened to them, and I can 100% downright respect what they do, just because progressive music is my favorite genre. So they were able to do something with their music that hadn't been really done before, and along with some one other band that we will be talking about soon, or not soon, later down the line, they really helped move progressive music into a new direction. So number 27, Eldamar. They got on this with one release personally. Personally, um, they basically all they had to do is release the Force of the Ancient Land, and that was enough. um, Force of the Ancient Land is for one, Eldamar is well, they are an atmospheric black metal band, and just their instrumentation is so. I am a huge sucker for atmosphere and music, and Eldamar does that to such a great degree, and I can really respect that. And it's the type of music that I listen to when I'm writing, or when I'm editing videos, or when I'm thinking up stuff, and it's really creative. It's very cool. So number 26 is going to be Linkin Park. Um, I knew I was going to put Linkin Park on this list. I just didn't know where. Um, they're one of the bands that originally got me into metal because they they have a wide, excuse me, a wide genre, and I feel like Linkin Park is more appreciated now after Chester Bennington's death, unfortunately. Very, very tragic, very sad. But I am hopeful and excited to see how Mike Shinoda and the other band members pick up the pieces because Mike Shinoda has said that he plans to continue the band or at least pick up the pieces soon. I'm excited to see how that works. So number 25 is going to be Deep Purple. So Deep Purple is they almost did not make the list. They almost did not make the list. And it's only because I feel like there are certain bands that do what they do better, but then when I go back and listen to them, I'm like, because I listened to a lot of these bands in preparation for this list, I was like, there's no way I can't put these guys on there. Child in Time is easily one of the best psychedelic or progressive songs of all time, and it's one of the reasons I put this band separate from Yes, Rush, and King Crimson. Deep Purple is amazing. They're a band that I don't think anyone can really hold a candle to. Well, I should say there's people that can hold a candle to them. It's just for their specific type of music. They're very, very good at what they do. Number 24, Killswitch Engage. One of the first metalcore bands that I ever listened to, and I feel like the first metalcore band that a lot of people listen to. Howard Jones does a great job on the vocals until his departure, and I don't know the name of the new vocalist, but I personally think he's fine. I think he's a good vocalist. Their newer material isn't necessarily their best material, but it's definitely by no means bad. And someone that's new to the band that checks them out for the first time, looks up their name, maybe gets recommended for something, gets recommended the band by a friend or family member or something, and then goes out and checks the band, and one of the first songs they click on is maybe like the newer stuff off the new album, which I listened to once. I can't recall the name straight off the top of my head, but like if they listen to a song like "Cut Me Loose," I'd be okay with that. At the same time, there's, in my opinion, better songs, but with Howard Jones, but that's fine. So number 23 is going to be Metallica. Now, Metallica is honestly another band that almost didn't make the list too, but then when you think of their earlier discography, it's impossible to not put them on this list. And what can you say that hasn't been said about Metallica? Number 22, Within the Ruins. So I have a very, very specific reason for putting these guys on the list. I have a strong respect for bands that can morph their sound while still staying true to their original idealism and still sound good. When you have a band like Within the Ruins that was predominantly deathcore in their early days when they released albums like Elite, albums like Phenomena, and then they released something like Halfway Human, which is more of a progressive metalcore type of gent-sounding, jilted playing style instrumentation, and with some singing on it, some clean singing. It's very impressive that they were able to do that, and I can't help but go back to that first tapping riff on the very first song on their album, Phenomena. I believe it's called Gods Amongst Men. That intro riff, oh my gosh. In fact, I will play a quick clip, because you can play 6 seconds. I'll play a quick clip here. Alright, so moving on from there. Number 21, Opeth. Opeth is, if there was a completely, like, separate, there should be a separate place in music stores for Opeth. That's how creative they are. I mean, this band is diverse. And, I mean, they mix death metal, melodic death metal, folk music, progressive death metal, technical death metal. It's quite insane how just one album can change so much from the next, but they keep it creative, and I definitely can respect that. So number 20, remember when we talked about Mournful Congregation? Well, number 20 is going to be Bell Witch, and it's pretty much for one reason. I hope you've seen my review of the album Mirror Reaper, because if you haven't, you should watch it, or you should at least go listen to the album by my recommendation. Oh my gosh. When you have a band that I like bands that tell stories or have a reason to be doing what they're doing, and uh, Desmond was left alone when Adrian passed away. If you don't know, Bellwitch had only two members, and then Adrian, who was the drummer, passed away, and so Desmond had to get, I forget the name of the new one, the new drummer, but this album came out, and if funeral doom metal invokes emotion, then Bellwitch turns the volume up to 100, and not necessarily like actual volume. I'm saying they turn it up. They turn the lever up as far as you can. And this is just a sorrowful album, and you can really, really hear it in Desmond's guitar playing or bass playing. And it's quite something to marvel at. I definitely recommend it. Number 19 is going to be Iron Maiden. Kind of like Metallica. If you're a metalhead, if you're a rock fan, a classic rock fan, a classic metal fan, if you don't have Iron Maiden on your list, that's surprising for most people, because they're one of the classic acts. And I swear, "Hallowed Be Thy Name" is probably one of my favorite metal songs in general. So yeah. Number 18, All That Remains. There is something about this band that I can't put my finger on that is very appealing to me. I know that they're just a metalcore band. It's not like they're necessarily doing something super like that's never been done before. They're a metalcore band, but there's something about the way they play is very, very just it makes me want to keep listening. The song This Calling. Once again, I'll play a quick clip of that right here. This part in particular is what gets me, is the double bass that comes in with the blast beat, and you have the clean singing that's roaring over just this super fast playing bass. I'll put a clip here. Oh my gosh, that's just so good. All right, so moving on from there, number 17 is going to be Red. So Red is a Christian rock slash metal band, and I ping-ponged back and forth with putting either Disciple or Red at this spot, because they're both very good Christian metal and rock bands. But personally, I listen to Red more now, although I could revisit Disciple and probably put them somewhere on this list. Number 16 is going to be Judas Priest. Under the same vein as Iron Maiden, you gotta have Judas Priest, and they're more than just Painkiller. They're more than just breaking the law. They are a product that really you just hope never goes away. Number 15 is going to be Unearth. Alright, kind of like another band that we're going to be talking about in a while. Unearth is a metalcore band that is consistent. They are just consistent, and the consistency is not necessarily a bad thing, as long as you don't become a Nickelback and just make the same album every album. Like, I mean, sorry, but AC/DC and Nickelback, I have to say it, are a little overrated when it comes to making the same album every single time. There's a certain way to do consistency right and add some monkey wrenches into it, but still, Unearth is great. Number 14, Alisana. This is bad. This is kind of actually pretty funny. They're here for one album. They have a discography that I've explored, and yet they're only here for one album, and that album is The Emptiness. I'm a sucker for stories. I'm a writer, and I'm a sucker for albums that tell stories, concept albums. And I swear, Alisana does it right. Go listen to The Emptiness. Number 13 is going to be Veil of Maya. This band probably would have been a little higher if, well, I shouldn't say that. If there's, they were deathcore, and then they're kind of like Within the Ruins, and then they went to a kind of gent-y progressive metalcore type of veneer with their album Matriarch, and then False Idol. But I still go back and bump Eclipse a lot. Like, I have a review of that on my channel if you want to go check that out. And I'll probably review the rest of their discography after that with albums like Matriarch and False Idol. Number 12 is going to be Between the Buried and Me. So, Between the Buried and Me is, they're their own breed. They are their own breed of, they're kind of what I can consider to be kind of comparable to a band like Opeth or a band like Tool, who did not make this list, still a good band, where it's this idea of this progressive music that is taken to just this strange level that is very avant-garde, and I can respect that a lot. And their newest album, Automata 1, I'm excited to see how the second album plays out, so we'll have to wait and see with that. I mean, you never know. So, number 11 is going to be PVRS/Paris. So, this is a kind of, they were post-hardcore and hard rock, and then they became kind of more of an electronic synthy type of rock. And that is, of course, what's it called? All We Know of Heaven, All We Need of Hell, which is their newest album. And once again, that's another album that I've reviewed on the channel. And Lynn's vocals on particularly that album, in my opinion, are very, very more mature and more well-tailored than the previous efforts put forth by the band. And not that the rest isn't good. The discography is very explorable. It's just that particular album, to me, I feel like those vocals were a little bit more fine-tuned. So number 10 is going to be Rise Against. So this is a punk rock or just a hardcore punk type of band. And I swear, there's a band that I'm thinking of. What is it? U2. U2. Rise Against is a more heavy U2. If you took U2 and made them a hardcore punk band, that's what you'd get with Rise Against. Rise Against lyrical themes are crushing. I love Rise Against lyrics. They have probably some of my favorite lyrics of any band on this list. Like a song like Savior, or particularly Hero of War. Wow. I mean, it sticks to the punk rock veneer, and I'm sure that by now, because it's such a long-running genre, that you guys know what to expect from kind of punk rock and punk metal and stuff like that. You should know what to expect, and boy, they deliver. They really, really do deliver. I love this band a lot. They were one of the bands that really got me into kind of punk rock, and I can't say that I'm necessarily the type of like a die-hard fan of punk rock or hardcore punk or whatever, but this album definitely exposed me to other great bands like such as Beartooth. So number 9, we're in the final 9. Born of Osiris. Yes, I will still put them in my top 10. I don't care if Tomorrow We Die Alive was a little worse than The Discovery, and I don't care if Soul Sphere is somewhat mediocre compared to both. Born of Osiris deserves to be on this list, and as a progressive metal fan, it's impossible not to put them at least this high, because an album like The Discovery or Tomorrow We Die Alive, or even Soul Sphere, to be honest, A Higher Place, A New Dawn, it's just, Born of Osiris, definitely, they fall under the same thing as Veil of Maya or Within the Ruins, where they really changed their style, and it's very, very respectable that they were able to keep their original style, and I definitely really appreciate that. And Born of Osiris will stay probably in the top 10, unless just their next album is a super stinker, which, who knows. I know they're wrapping up they're going to be doing vocals, wrapping up vocals soon. They might have already. So that should be kind of a lot of bands I like, and a lot of bands on this list are coming out with new material this year, I believe. Number 8 is going to be Asking Alexandria. This used to be my second favorite band back in the day, and my number 3 band used to be my number 1 band. So Asking Alexandria metalcore as a genre has been expanding, and there's certain bands that still cling to the original metalcore veneer. But I feel like for a band like Asking Alexandria, ooh, oh, excuse me, um, for a band like Asking Alexandria, I feel like the style as a whole has gotten a bit worn out from the past, I should say, like the past work. Their newest album, their self-titled album, is very creative. It is extremely creative, and it changes up styles a lot, but it didn't get the best reception by a lot of people. But I still think that they're a very good band, and they're definitely still on this list. So number 7 is going to be Breaking Benjamin. Breaking Benjamin, hold. Breaking Benjamin is going to be releasing a new album on April 13th, and I am so excited after hearing Save Yourself to see what they do. And they released Dark Before Dawn, and it was such a great album. What's the band that I'm thinking? Unearth. That's the band I was thinking of that I talked about. Breaking Benjamin's a lot like Unearth, where they are consistent. Ben doesn't want to reinvent the wheel, but he ping-pongs back and forth between so many different ideas that it really ends up making these albums something to marvel at, something to really enjoy, and it's definitely a great experience, and I'm so excited to see what Ember's going to be doing for this band. Number 6 is going to be Cattle Decapitation. This is a vegan metal band that is signed to Metal Blade Records that clings more to a kind of death grind, grindcore, gore grind, whatever you want to call it, death metal type of veneer. And for the same kind of reason as Rise Against, I really like their lyrical themes. They talk a lot about environmentalism, veganism, stuff like that, and war, stuff like that. And their lyricism is just very good, and they're definitely the heaviest band on this list. And they are, once again, kind of like the Funeral Doom, like Mournful Congregation and Bell Witch. They're not for everyone, but I do suggest checking them out. I plan to do more discography reviews of Cattle Decapitation because my review of the Anthropocene Extinction did super well. That has like over 100 views. Wow. All right, so we're in the final 5-minute review. No, that's not a 5-minute review. Number 5 is going to be Porcupine Tree. Porcupine Tree is it's a band that is kind of like a couple other ones that are in the final 5. It's just so atmospheric. Steven Wilson knocks it out of the park with his solo work, but when he gets with Porcupine Tree, wow. Listen to a song like Trains, listen to a song like Lazarus, and it is just beautiful progressive rock. And I highly suggest checking this band out. They have been around. They're one of the bands. They're the greatest and one of the oldest bands that you have never heard of. They've been around since like the 80s, the late 80s. So definitely check them out. Number 4, The Contortionist. This is probably, funny enough, one of the most recent inductees into my favorite bands list. But, oh my, Clairvoyant is definitely... I plan to do a list later in the year of, like, the albums, not necessarily that were released this year, but the albums this year that really shaped this year for me and that I listened to the most this year. And Clairvoyant by The Contortionist is going to be up there. Go check out the review I did for it on my channel. It's titled under, like, the best album I've heard in a while, and that is not clickbait. That is completely true. The Contortionist crafts such an atmosphere, and I don't mind that it's not as heavy as their old releases. When they were, like, deathcore and progressive metal, when they clung more to that with their old albums, it doesn't matter. Clairvoyant is an amazing album, and I have no idea how they can outdo it, but if they do manage to outdo it, they could end up bumping up even further. Who knows? If they made another album that was as good or better than Clairvoyant. Number 3. This is the band that used to be my number 1. This is Bring Me the Horizon. So, Bring Me the Horizon, what can't you say about them? They have such a great, diverse career. and I feel like it's undeniable that they really have a certain style to them that they've played for. They keep great lyricism, and they keep the emotion with metalcore, with deathcore, with pop rock, with progressive, with post-hardcore and metalcore. Like, how are they able to do that? I have no clue. Their next album is said to be maybe more poppy, so I'm excited to see how it goes. That's the Spirit is still a phenomenal album. I've reviewed both Bring the Horizons, That's the Spirit album, and Sempiternal, and I plan to do more discography reviews. I actually have a poster of them. Number 2. This is the band that I was talking about way back when I was talking about Yes, Rush, King Crimson, and Deep Purple. Oh my gosh. Number 2 is Pink Floyd. I don't care if you're talking about their newer albums, such as, or their final album like Endless River. I don't care if you're talking about when Syd Barrett was in the band, or when Syd Barrett was kicked out of the band. Whether you're looking at an album like Atom Heart Mother, or Animals, or Echoes, or The Wall, or Dark Side of the Moon, or Endless River, or The Division Bell, this band is legendary. If you like metal, or if you like rock, you know this name. Whatever age you are, you know Pink Floyd. They are something to marvel at. They are almost monolithic in the progressive. They're untouchable. In the progressive genre, they are untouchable. They are the forefathers. Bands like Yes, Rush, King Crimson, Deep Purple, bands like that we talked about, they can't hold a candle to Pink Floyd, and I truly mean that. And I don't really think that's subjective, because the numbers of the sales can show as much that Pink Floyd really is the king of this breed of music from the past. And it saddens me that Endless River was not able to debut at number 1 on the Billboard 200. I think it's maybe bad advertising, because I feel like maybe people just didn't know, or they're too old and no one thought about it. But Endless River is still a very good album. Still definitely a very good album. But Pink Floyd is legendary, untouchable. Number 1. Drum roll, please. Era. 2 R's. Era is a progressive metalcore band, a gent band, just a progressive band, and they have some very spiritual lyrics, not necessarily Christianity, and not necessarily like, it's hard to explain their type of lyricism. It's more like what you would think of as maybe like a no, not Hinduism, kind of idealism of Hinduism and Buddhism, kind of like it has a lot of spiritual, like meditation and like transcendence type of lyricism, the type of stuff that's like very atmospheric in tone, but they just play some amazing music. And Era is definitely my favorite band, and they became my favorite band after I heard the introduction tapping riff on Luminous. And I'll let you hear a clip of that here. It's impossible for me not to put Era at number 1. And they used to be my number 2 when Bring the Horizon was number 1. But I decided to move some stuff around, and it's been a while since I've made a list like this, and I honestly have never made a list that was this kind of in-depth. But I'm sorry for the length if you aren't a big fan of the length. I just really wanted to talk about these bands and talk about my favorite bands to give you guys a bit of an understanding about me. This has been Jay Mercer, Review Guy. I'm signing off, saying farewell.